welcome back to my channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Danielle and I am the owner of Damn Fancy Creations. If you guys are new to my channel, I do want to let you know you can catch my tutorials in two other spots. I have a tutorial group on Facebook as well as a smaller patron group where I offer exclusive discount codes, free files, and of course group challenges. We do all sorts of fun stuff in that group. If either of those sound like something that would interest you, I'm going to drop the link in the description so you guys can check them out. I also want to give a huge shout out to one of my patrons. Her name is Kimberly Ann, and she is the owner of Kimberly Ann Handmade. I am going to drop her links in the description as well. Y'all please go check her out and show her some love. So for this tutorial today, I'm going to be using another one of Ellie B's templates. I used her template in the Aztec hack that I just posted recently, and I decided to finally do a chevron pattern, or a lot of people like to call it the tanagram tumbler, but it's not really a tanagram, it's just chevron that is cut up into little pieces. So that is what we're going to be doing today. This is a super easy tumbler. I know so many of you guys look at some of these tumblers and think, oh, I wish I could be that good. I'm never going to be able to do a tumbler like that. But it is not as hard as it looks, and I am going to show you guys how easy it is. So if you guys are ready to see how I did this offset chevron peekaboo tumbler, let's get started. So as always, we are going to start with a prepped tumbler, spray painted white. The glitter that I am using is opaque glitter, so I'm not too worried about matching the base color of my cup to my glitter color. I am just applying a thin layer of epoxy all over my tumblers. I am really conscious of how much I put on the bottom of my cups. I want to make sure that there is epoxy on there, obviously, so the glitter will stick, but not enough where globs will form and make our cup uneven. I will always wipe from bottom to top to kind of wipe off any of the excess epoxy, and then I am going to pop all of the bubbles with our torch. So I filmed the beginning for two of these tumblers because I was making two different colors. So the first one, we're going to be using Orange Dirty Shirley from the Drunk Flamingo glitter. I really like it. It's a holographic orange, but really pretty. And I am just sprinkling the glitter on the tumbler and kind of letting it cascade down the cup. And then I will just kind of throw some up on the bottom, make sure it's covered really well. And then the second color we're going to be using is Mimosa, also from the Drunk Flamingo. It is my favorite champagne gold. I use this all the time. And we're doing the same thing, just covering the cup really well with this glitter. And with chunky, you can take parchment paper, wax paper, anything like that, and kind of smooth out the chunky glitter if you need to. This one really didn't have a whole lot of pieces sticking up, so I just tapped down the few pieces with my finger. So we are now applying our second coat of epoxy. I will typically apply 2 coats of epoxy before I do any type of spray painting or peekaboo. That way the cup is already very smooth and I won't need to do a whole lot of sanding. I try not to sand too much if I know I'm going to be spray painting, because I don't want any spray paint to get trapped in any deep sanding grooves that can form if you're sanding with a finer grit paper. So I will pretty much epoxy until this is smooth, which is typically 2 coats. And then I will just sand the top edge and the bottom rim just to smooth those parts out. And then I will be ready to do the peekaboo. And for my torching, I do torch for 1 full rotation, just so I'm sure that the entire tumbler is getting hit. So I went ahead and printed my template on just white vinyl. I just use whatever vinyl I have on hand. If you would rather use removable vinyl, that's definitely fine. I just don't ever keep that on hand. I will point out that since we are applying this template over a glittered and epoxied tumbler, you may need to edit the template slightly, because the glitter and the epoxy will make the tumbler a little bit thicker than a naked stainless tumbler. So what I did was measured the circumference of my tumbler with the glitter and epoxy on it and just widened the template a little bit. So again, that will be different for every tumbler depending on how thick your epoxy is. But if you try to apply the template on top of a epoxied tumbler, the edges are not going to meet. So this template was edited slightly, and you guys can see that it matches up pretty well, so I was really happy with that. The bottom does have a little bit of overhang, but that is something easily fixable by just trimming it with your scissors if you need to. So I am going to take my transfer tape I always use transfer tapes with lines on it. It really helps me get everything matched up. So I am going to take one of my transfer tape lines and match it up to the edge of this template, so that I know for sure that the template is going to be 100% straight when I put it on my tumbler. So once I got the first inch or two smoothed down, I am going to take my little squeegee or spatula, whatever these things are called, and I am just going to pull the backing off as I smooth it down. I do want my chevron pattern to be wrinkle-free if at all possible. It will just make it a lot easier to apply to the cup. And I am going to trim all of my excess off. When I'm working with large templates like this, I don't like any overhang of the transfer tape because I would rather not have extra sticky stuff hanging out. I would rather just work with the size that is the template. So now I am going to make sure that my line is straight with a level and a Sharpie, because I don't want to apply this crookedly and then have my ends not meet up as straight as I would like them to. This is what I did not do when I did my Aztec template, and I should have. I was just in a hurry. So I am just holding my level up, and whenever I get this transfer tape straight as I can, I am going to shift my transfer tape, so I have to redo it again. So I just repositioned my tape, held my level up again just to make sure it was straight, and then be very careful when I move this time. And then I'm just going to put 3 dots, one up at the very top, one in the middle, and then one at the very bottom. And this is basically going to be my guide for when I place my vinyl. So now that I have my 3 dots, they're, you know, you can just barely see them. I don't know if you guys can see them in the video or not. But if you can see these after you spray paint everything, you can just take some acetone or alcohol and wipe that Sharpie mark off. It comes off super easy. All right, so now I just lined up my vinyl, and I am just wrapping it around the tumbler. I am just using my hands to do this. I know some people like to use the little squeegee, but sometimes I'll get vinyl that kind of sticks to the paper because I cut my vinyl too deep, and it's just easier for me to fix it with my hands. So I'm going to peel up the other side of this transfer tape so that I can lay the other side down. It did overlap just slightly, probably like 3 millimeters, if that. And you guys can see like the very last line of the chevron did not stick to the cup because I did have to make the template just slightly larger to accommodate for the glitter and epoxy. So I was trying to kind of scoot these over slightly. You know, you live and learn. So I ended up scooting these over a little bit to accommodate for the size difference. Sorry, my big bun is in the way. But I really did not have to move these over, but since I started to move them, I just moved them all. I did end up taking my blade and just cutting the excess off. It really wasn't that much. After I spray painted and everything, I couldn't even tell that one little chevron column was just slightly smaller than the other ones. but you guys can kind of see in the video right now where one part is a little bit wider because it is overlapping. So I just took my blade, went down the entire cup, and just peeled up those little strips that were excess. And then any of these wrinkles I did kind of smooth out. Just because I am going to be spray painting this, I do like my vinyl to be as flat as it can be, because if there's any gaps at the top or bottom or sides of any of these vinyl pieces, then there is a chance for paint to kind of seep down in those little creases, and that would just mean more cleanup and more hassle. So I try to avoid that if I can. So now that we have everything smoothed out and pretty matched up, we are going to peel every other chevron piece. So we're not going to peel the pieces of vinyl that are right next to each other. We're going to skip every other one. And again, I'm sorry that my hair is in the way. A lot of times I forget that I'm filming and just get in the groove and just don't even think about it until my bun hits my iPad above me. And if you guys do not have these CC DIY tweezers, I highly suggest getting them. If you watch my tutorials, you know that I've used them for so many things lately. They're just perfect for a lot of stuff. They're sharp and tiny, and they have a good grip on them, so. One thing I will point out that I forgot to mention earlier is that when you apply your template to your tumbler, make sure that it is right side up, I guess. Because when I applied my first one, I just totally didn't even think about it going the right way, and I applied it the wrong way. So instead of applying it like this, the chevron was going the opposite direction, and it didn't match up. The template didn't match up. It was not a chevron pattern. I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm thankful that I caught it before I spray painted it, but that just means that I had to peel off all of those tiny little shapes and then reapply them. So that was not fun at all. So definitely make sure you have your pattern facing the correct direction. Live and learn. And once we get all of these little vinyl pieces peeled off, we are going to be ready to spray paint. So I took this outside, spray painted it with these colors. It is Satin Silver Lilac, Satin Vintage Blush, and Ultra Matte Rustic Pink, all from Rust-Oleum. And once the tumbler is 100% dry, then we will start to peel off the rest of the vinyl. I like to wait overnight before I start handling or peeling up the vinyl. I just want to be 100% sure that it's dry. I don't want the chance of any fingerprints being left on the paint. I don't want any paint to be a little bit more wet around the edges of the vinyl. So typically overnight, and it will be really, really dry and easier to peel off the vinyl and easier to handle. And again, we're using these CC DIY tweezers. I used to use my little, kind of like a pin tool to peel up vinyl, but it was only like a needle kind of. And I really like the tweezers better since it is two-sided and I can grip stuff with it. And I do find it's much easier to peel vinyl off of spray painted cups with these tweezers. And again, this was one of those tumblers where the more and more I got finished with it, the more and more I loved it. I just really like this purple pink ombre and the gold. I think it just really goes well together. And these are the same colors that I used for my pumpkin leopard swirl tumbler. I just really like these colors together, if you guys haven't been able to tell. So now we're all done peeling up the vinyl. Now I'm going to take some nail tape, and this is how we're going to do our striping. You could cut vinyl if that's what you wanted to do. I personally like to use the nail tape because you're not having to cut 100 lines of vinyl. You're not having to worry about what size to make them. The nail tape, I just really like the thinness of it, and that you're not having to cut them out with your Cameo and weed all these little tiny lines. Sometimes it's hard to get started. So basically what we're going to do is cut these little lines. Hopefully my bun is not going to be in the way the whole time. So I'm just cutting these little nail tape lines the length of one chevron, and I'm just cutting it with my blade because it's a lot easier to get it perfect with your blade rather than scissors. Another way that you can do this as well is basically taking the nail tape and wrapping it around the entire tumbler, and then you go back and cut the nail tape where it overlapped the places where you don't want it. I don't know if that makes sense. I should probably do another tutorial on how I did it that way. But you can just wrap the nail tape all the way around the tumbler, just going from one gold piece to the next gold piece and then cutting the nail tape where it overlaps the spray painted piece, if that makes more sense. I'm not quite sure if it does or not. So we're basically just going to do this the entire time. This probably was the most time-consuming part of making this tumbler because there are so many little tiny lines. But it is definitely worth it because I think that they are very, very pretty in the end. Especially since the rest of the tumbler was so easy to do that this step didn't really seem too tedious. You know, if the rest of the tumbler had been a little bit more difficult, then I probably would not like making these, but since it's really just glitter and then spray paint, it's not too bad. And for the bottom of the tumbler, I did just kind of fold the nail tape over the edge. I personally liked the look of the spray paint kind of fading into the bottom of the tumbler. It's kind of hard to tell on video, but wherever the vinyl was not, you get kind of like a faded rhombus, I guess. So it kind of looked like the painted rhombus shapes were kind of fading into the bottom, which I really didn't mind. So I didn't do anything special on the bottom. I just liked the look that naturally formed with the spray paint. So if you guys have the hang of this step, you can definitely skip ahead. I'm going to let it play for a few more minutes because I know that several of you like to kind of see how things are done several times. All right, so once we have all of the little rhombuses outlined, we are going to take our nail tape and go from top to bottom just in straight lines. So this step is super, super easy. We are just going to be making long straight lines down the tumbler. And voila. So I'm going to do this all the way around my tumbler. After I get all of these lines on my cup, I will make sure that all of them are pressed down very well, and then I do seal it with quick coat before I epoxy, because we all know there is nothing more annoying than having vinyl, or in this case the nail tape, lift under epoxy. And especially since this tumbler took so long, I did not want to risk it getting messed up just from the lifted nail tape. And after my quick coat has dried, I will apply my final 2 layers of epoxy. And for those of you that don't know what quick coat is, a lot of people get quick coat and fast set confused. Quick coat is just a sealer from CCDIY. It is not glossy. It's just a matte sealer that helps seal glitter, vinyl, nail tape, things like that that you don't want to lift or bleed or anything like that under epoxy. And Fast Set is epoxy that cures in about 2 hours, which is also from CC DIY. And when you get your final 2 layers of epoxy on your cup, you are done. And I do always apply 2 layers of epoxy on top of my vinyl or water slide. I just like to be 100% sure that everything has a good layer on it. Nothing is thin or could crack easily. I just want to make sure that everything is protected very well. So that is pretty much it for this tutorial. I will show you guys both cups at the end. On the orange tumbler, I did go with a cream and green spray paint, and I added some pumpkins that I had left over from my pumpkin and leopard swirl tumblers. And I'm really happy with how both of them turned out. I thought that they were both perfect for fall. This one is definitely more of like a girly fall than your typical orange and red colors. And the orange one is more of your fall tumbler. And here are the finished products. I love how they turned out. They look so pretty once everything is epoxied and shiny. If you guys decide to make one of these, please be sure to tag me because I would love to see what you guys come up with. If y'all enjoyed this video or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group on Facebook or my Patreon group. Thanks for watching.